Hello. So I've decided to create this video channel because of my love for music in all formats, mainly vinyl and CD, because that's the majority of music I've collected over the years was on vinyl and CD. Uh, this collection that I want to highlight, and I'm not going to do it all in one day because that would take forever. But I'll do some videos here and there and highlight 10 albums at a time, or 10 artists at a time, of what I have, what we have in our collection. My husband and I met over 30 years ago, and we've accumulated a huge vinyl collection. We collectively love all genres of music. We have many similar tastes and individual tastes, but a lot of our music tastes are similar, which helps. And over the years, over the last 30 years, we've collected a lot of music, both on vinyl formats, CD formats, and digital music platform formats. But I want to highlight some records in each of my videos. And just briefly give you some pointers, or not pointers, but stats on each of these records. I may not have a lot of stats, but I'll do my best, and I am reading some notes here and there. So if you see me flipping some pages, that's because I have some notes written down and I don't want to forget anything. But I'm going to start with one of my favorite groups. Well, not groups, but one of my favorite records back in the 80s. I was about 13 when this came out. And the band is called A Flock of Seagulls. They're a new wave electronic band that came kind of synth pop-ish out of the Liverpool, England area. That's them there. There's the lead singer with his funky 80s hairdo. Many of us had funky hairdos back in the 80s. But yeah, this record is called Listen. Came out in 1983, April of 1983. Again, it's new wave electronic synth pop. Um, I had a huge love for electronic music, and still do. Loved bands like the Human League, Depeche Mode, The Cure, more alternative band, but yeah, those were Depeche Mode, Human League were actually pivotal in me in my love for electronic music. They were pioneers, and really grew over the years. But anyways, this album, Listen, had one hit single from it. They're definitely, the group Flock of Seagulls is definitely not a one hit wonder, but this album had a hit called Wishin' If I Had a Photograph, and that came out prior to the release of this album in 1982. The album itself was somewhat of a hit in Canada, UK, and the USA. In the UK, it reached number 16 on their official charts. In Canada, on our RPM charts, it reached number 12. And in the USA, on the Billboard 200 chart, which is the you know the chart everyone wanted to be on, this album reached number 16 on that chart and number 12 on the Billboard Rock Albums chart. The album has a profile, and that profile is actually of the drummer in the band, who's one of these guys here. I believe it's this guy here, but that's his profile. Anyways, it's a great album, and it started my love for. I loved the single "Wishing." I loved that single, and it reached number 10 in Canada, and number 3 in the Billboard mainstream rock track. So that's really the best it did in the world. But great track, in my opinion. Reminds me of my teenage years or preteen years. The next record I want to highlight is from 1988. It's a house dance music track, classic actually. It's from a guy called Gerald Simpson, who went by the moniker a guy called Gerald. And this record, it's called Voodoo Ray, came out on 12-inch remixes in 1988. He is from Manchester, England, and he's a techno house music musician producer. This album, this 12-inch did okay in Europe. On the Euro Billboard chart, it reached number 41. In the UK singles chart in England, it reached number 12. And on the Billboard Dance Club Music Play chart, it reached number 12. Great track, classic house music record. So if you love house music, this should definitely be in your collection. Next record is from a group that began in the 70s, and I think this is their first self-titled album. Group is called The Taste of Honey. This is a self-titled album. It came out in 1978. They're LA-based disco adult contemporary pop funk R&B artist, and they were active from I think 1972 to 1983. They didn't have I think their only hit was actually on this album. So and it's going back to 1978. The single is called Boogie Oogie Oogie. Now, title's not really great, but the actual song itself, very infectious, very groovy, and was the epitome of disco in the 1970s. Disco, really was the birth of house music and club music. So, there was a very huge anti-disco movement in the late part of the 70s. But quite frankly, it was the birth of much of the music we hear today via electronic dance and even pop. This album actually reached number 6 on the Billboard 200 album charts. On the hip hop charts, it was number 2. And the single itself in Canada reached number 2, number 1 on the disco Canadian charts, number 3 on the UK charts, and in the USA, it was their only number 1 Billboard Top 100 hit, number 1 soul hit, and number 1 disco anthem hit. So it reached number 1 in the US. Very popular record. So yeah, Disco, A Taste of Honey, self-titled, 1978. Great record. Now moving on to Canadian group, Canadian Indigenous group with their album. This didn't really chart, but this album is called, actually it's from a tribe called Red. It's Nation to Nation, came out in 2013. The group is an electronic group combining elements of hip-hop and dubstep. They were based out of Ottawa, and they're members of Six Nations of the Grand River Cayuga First Nation. The co-founder is Ian DJ NDN Campo, and he's of Nipissing First Nation, and he left in 2017 for health reasons. But this is, if you like dubstep and electronic, this is an excellent record to listen to. And it's got a lot of a lot of indigenous elements as well. So it's a really, really great record. I also have the Great Seal of the Hallucination. They're, I think now, I'm sure they go by the moniker of Hallucination right now. But this is their 2016 album. It says here Pitchfork gave it an 8 out of 10 review, and Exclaim magazine gave it 10 out of 10. It was CBC's, which is a Canadian news media outlet, called it the number 1 album of the year. And it features Indigenous artists Yacine Bey, Saul Williams, uh, Linda Pimienta, Tanya Tagag, and John Trudell. So there's lots of, again, indigenous elements of this record. We Are a Hallucination. Um, it is again from 2016. It's their third studio album. It's a concept album featuring stories of the Aboriginal voices that speak of colonization on Indigenous peoples in the modern world. It was inspired by John Trudell, who was a Native American rights activist and musician, and a poet who passed away on December 8th, 2015, at the age of 69. Again, this album has elements of dubstep and electronic music and rap hip hop. It's great. It reached the Billboard Top Dance Electronic Albums and peaked at number 7. It also was on Billboard Heatseekers chart, which is a chart that gauges what new and developing acts are doing prior to having an album debut on the 200. On that specific chart, Heatseekers chart, it hit number 17. Now, the next record I want to highlight is by an artist, an American artist, Aaliyah. This record is her third and final studio album. This album is a Vinyl Me Please edition. Vinyl Me Please is a record company that issues special editions of certain records, and this is a gatefold of that record released by Aaliyah. In 2001 it came out, but this re-release from Vinyl Me Please came out in 2022. It's quite excellent. It's got a little bit of a bio and background story of Aaliyah, who has since passed away. She died in a plane crash in Marsh Harbor, Abaco Islands, Bahamas, but left us some great music. This album actually, in its original release, hit the Billboard Canadian charts and topped it at number 6. And in the R&B albums chart, it also topped at number 6. UK, it reached number 5 on the R&B chart. In the official charts in the UK, it actually reached number 1. Now in the US, it was very successful. It was topped the Billboard 200 charts, and it was number 2 on the Billboard R&B hip hop charts. The main single that came out of this, actually 3 singles came out of this, but the first one was We Need a Resolution, which came out in April 2001, and that was a huge hit worldwide. It didn't really have much of an impact. It did make the top 100 in the USA, but peaked at number 59. It was a great track, great video. Her second single, Rock the Boat, from the album also didn't really have a huge impact on the major charts. Number 63 in Canada, 47 in Europe. In UK, it actually reached number 2, Rock the Boat. In the USA, it topped. Actually, it peaked at number 14 on the Hot 100 chart. Her last single from the album was More Than a Woman, and that's where I think after finishing that video, that's where she perished in an airplane crash. But that song peaked at number 1 on the UK singles charts and number 25 in the USA Billboard Hot 100 chart. That was the last single, and that was released in 2001. So it's great. It's red and gold Galaxy vinyl, the Vinyl Me Please edition. It has some listening notes. It has a great booklet by Amelia Sutliff, an art print by Jacob Rochester, and it's foil stamped. So this edition was really cool, and the record actually itself is really, really great. yeah, so that's that record. The next record I want to highlight is Leah's Greatest Hits. Now, this was only released on CD format back in the day, and finally got a vinyl edition release in 2022. It was a limited release on CD in selected countries. It was her second compilation record. The 2022 reissue was the first time on vinyl, and it has all her hits. There's three records on vinyl, and it has great hits like "One in a Million," "The One I Gave My Heart To," "Got to Give It Up," "Rock the Boat," "Try Again," "Back and Forth," Are you That Somebody?" Like such great hits. It's a great compilation, excellent record. And the initial CD and DVD release was successful. It topped a lot of it made a lot of the major charts across the world. Peaked at number 41 on the Billboard 200 chart. Not bad for a compilation. So that's that record. The next record I want to highlight is a Greatest Hits compilation. Now there's a lot to say about this record because it's, for a band that wasn't together for, a huge time, they released so many singles. This compilation was released originally in 1999, and it's a greatest hits collection. Pop, Euro pop, I guess you could say. It's got their major hits like "Dancing Queen," "Knowing Me, Knowing You," "Take a Chance on Me," "Lay All Your Love on Me," "The Winner Takes It All," "Gimme, Gimme, Gimme," "Voulez-Vous," so many hits. It's a great record if you like pop, Euro pop, and if you like ABBA. Now, this record was released many times over the years, their greatest hits, and remastered over the years. This is a 180 gram heavyweight vinyl. This specific edition was released in 2014. And it was to commemorate the 40th anniversary of winning the Eurovision contest. So they won that back in 1974. And that's when they became a super group. This is the best-selling ABBA album of all time. Around the world, it's sold. Actually, it's probably one of the greatest selling records of all time. It sold over 30 million copies. So again, like I said, it was re-released initially released in 1999 for the 25th anniversary of the Eurovision, and then it was released again in 2008, and then finally in 2014. There may have been newer editions released, but I don't have any information on that. This album was a very successful compilation album. It topped the RPM charts in Canada at number 4, number 1 in European album charts, number 1 in the UK charts, and was peaked at number 25 on the Hot 100 charts. Now, Billboard also has a catalog albums chart, which gauges the sales and gauges the sales of previously charted records, and that was number 1 on that chart. And since they started recording vinyl album sales, Billboard indicated that, well, actually it reached number 10 on that specific chart. So that's ABBA. If you like some fun poppy, Euro poppy music, this is the one to get. Actually, this version here is the 40th edition, so it was released in 2014. So I made a mistake. The next record I'm going to highlight is by a band called ABC with lead singer Martin Fry. Now, this record actually, again, it takes me back to my youth. This album is called The Lexicon of Love. It was released in 1982. And it was the debut solo album by the English pop band ABC. It is pop music, pop dance. It had some singles. First single was called Tears Are Not Enough. It didn't really impact the charts here in Canada or US. But their second single did. It was called Poison Arrow, and that came out in 1982 as well. That was a number 6 UK hit, and it made the top 40 Hot 100 in the USA at number 25. It also charted on Billboard's Disco Top 80 chart at number 39. Now, the song that really had a huge impact on the group was their next single, the third single, and that was The Look of Love. The Look of Love was released in May of 1982. It was a excellent record, or excellent single. I loved it. That came out, as I said, in May of 1982, and it had a huge impact for the band. It became their first number one in Canada, number 4 single in the UK. On the Hot 100, it was number 18, and on the Billboard Dance Disco Top 80, it was number 1 for them. The final single from the album was called All of My Heart. That's their fourth and final single from this record, and that was a hit in Canada and UK as well, topping the UK charts at number 5. So yeah, great records. Martin Fry's got a very soulful voice. I think he indicated some of his influences were Smokey Robinson, and later did a tribute song to Smokey Robinson called When Smokey Sings. I think that came out several years after this record, maybe 5 years after. But anyways, ABC, great debut album from the band. Now, the next one is the final record I'm going to highlight today. And this is a biggie for this artist. It was their debut album, and it put her on the map. Prior to releasing this album, which is called Forever Your Girl, Paula Abdul was a choreographer for the LA Lakers, and was a very successful choreographer. She did some choreography for Janet Jackson, Nasty, and was in the video. Was in that video. This record was released in 1988. This put her on the map. This record sold multiple million copies around the world. It was, let's see, well, in the US alone, it sold 7 million copies. It had, it had so many singles chart. I think it was the debut album by a female artist that had the most singles released. She had 6 singles from this album, and the first one was Knocked Out. That was released in 1988. It had a re-release because I don't think it did as well as they wanted it to do the first time around. So it had a remix version released by Shep Pettibone, and that hit some charts. It reached number 44 on the Billboard Hot 100 charts, and number 11 on Billboard Dance Singles charts. The second single was It's Just the Way That You Love Me. It was again released in 88. It didn't really do that well when it first came out. It reached number 88, but then it had a 1989 re-release. So It's Just the Way That You Love Me was re-released in 89, and then it became a huge hit. It actually peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. But the song that put her on the map was Straight Up. Straight Up, that song went number 1 worldwide. It was number 1 in Canada, number 1 on both the retail singles charts and the dance charts in Canada. It had number 2 for 3 weeks in the European Billboard Hot 100 charts. It was a number 3 single on the UK singles chart, and then in the US it was number 1 on the dance singles chart and the Billboard Hot 100. So it was a pretty huge album for her. It was actually, Forever Your Girl was actually the most successful debut albums of all time at that time. So in 1988, it was one of the most successful debut albums. After the success of Straight Up, the 4th single released from the record was Forever Your Girl, and that also was a number 1 hit both in US and Canada. The 5th single was Cold Hearted, that again reached number 1. It was the third consecutive number 1 single from that record. It was number 1 in Canada on the dance charts, number 1 on the retail singles charts, Billboard Hot 100 number 1 for 1 week, Billboard dance singles chart at number 6, and then the final single from this record was Opposites Attract. And that was her 4th and final consecutive number 1 from this record. It hit Billboard number 1 for 3 weeks on the Hot 100. It hit number 1 on the Dance Music Club, number 24 on the Dance Music Club Play chart. Number 1 in Canada, number 1 dance urban chart in Canada as well, and it was a number 2 UK hit. So that was her final single from this album, Forever Your Girl. I wasn't a huge fan of a lot of the singles. I did like them. It was the song Straight Up that really actually made me like some of the other singles a little more. But I wasn't a huge fan at first. It was, it was okay. She didn't really have a strong voice, in my opinion, but the singles were catchy, and I did love Straight Up. Needless to say, she didn't really amass the same kind of popularity with her future releases. I think she did have 1 or 2 other hits after this, which I'll probably talk about in the next video. But Forever Your Girl was actually one of the most successful debut albums from a female artist at that time. So I do give kudos to Paula Abdul for breaking a lot of records in 1988. So if you like this video, continue watching. I'll be posting another video in a few days or so for the next 10 records in the collection. So we're gonna go through this all, and hopefully you follow my journey. There's a lot to get through, and I hope you enjoy my little facts and tidbits on each of these vinyls that I have, and I hope to see you soon. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you like, subscribe and comment. Take care.